right, so on our panel we have representatives. I'll let them introduce themselves, but we have faculty, staff, and student organizations. So we have a representative from AAUP. We have a representative from CGE, from ASAP. We have SEIU, and then we have MedChat. So we don't, I don't know if we have a particular order. Do you have a
No, we just really discussed that, so.
Armel, why don't you go ahead?
Okay.
So introduce yourselves, please, to everybody.
Sure. So hi, everyone. My name is Armel Dennis. I am an instructor in French here and a member of the local chapter of the AAUP. And I'm also one of the authors of the survey on non-tenure track faculty that was done in 2013 by the AAUP and Faculty Senate. So I'll talk a little bit about the survey. What we sought to do with the survey was identify issues that we knew were there. We'd heard enough and experienced enough to know that there were issues, but we wanted to identify what they were really for non-tenure track folks at OSU and measure their extent. We got a really overwhelming response, almost 50% response rate on the survey. That's really exceptional. Hundreds of comments, people had a lot to say. And not all comments were negative, but we saw a lot that popped up again and again, a number of concerns that tend to belie the myth that OSU is really a socially responsible university. So I'll just mention a couple. Pay for instructors. Consistently at the bottom of the pay scale, teaching is really undervalued. According to the 2014 AAUP faculty salary survey, instructors at OSU make $46,700 a year, which places us in the 23rd percentile nationally, meaning that over 3/4 of higher ed institutions in this nation pay their instructors higher wages than OSU does. That number, $46,700, that is for somebody that's lucky enough to be a full-time instructor with a 12-month contract. So that's probably higher than a lot of folks actually get. I would say it is not a fair wage for people with masters and PhDs often, and the student loans that may go along with that. It's not fair either for people who've been working at OSU for a decade or more and basically still make entry-level wages or just above. Is it a living wage? If you're lucky enough to have a well-employed spouse, then it is. On this kind of wages, you have a roof over your head, you have food on the table, you can generally make ends meet without too much worry, unless life throws something unexpected at you. But crucially, you can't really put money aside to pay for your kids' higher education later on. So, in other words, these are not wages that allow you to stay in the middle class or that give your kids a fair chance at being middle class themselves, which, after all, is the central promise of higher education, isn't it? That if you get this degree, then you're set for life, you'll be comfortable. Well, that is not a promise that higher ed institutions, including OSU, keep for their employees either. So this sense of social vulnerability, the fear of falling out of the middle class, is really pervasive. It was really coming up again and again in the comments in the survey. And it's all the more pervasive because job security remains very low. Most non-tenure track people at OSU are on a one-year contract, which is hardly a long-term commitment to begin with. But even that is conditional, especially for research faculty. For research faculty, when the grant money runs out, and if they haven't secured further financing, then they're out the door no matter what the contract says. And that's a really big issue that's been identified by the survey team and by previous committees going back to 2004 already recommendations were published saying we need to put in place some form or other of bridge funding. Nothing has happened, and nothing seems to be happening on that front even now. So I think that's a big worry. The survey came up with a lot of recommendations that may go ignored the same way that others have been before. I think right now the administration is making some moves to give some modest wage increases to encourage and simplify promotion for non-tenure track people. I think they can feel the heat from us. They're also looking down the road at UFO and up the road at PSU. They see what people mobilizing and organizing can do. So they see the writing on the wall. They feel the heat, but I think we need to keep their feet to the fire and really demand the accountability that they promised. It's prominently in their core values. Specifically in this case, we made a recommendation that the provost should gather some data from each college about non-tenure track appointments, contract length, wages, promotions, etc., and report that data every year to Faculty Senate and make it publicly available. And only when we have some numbers, then will we be able to see if truly there is some change, if they're addressing these issues, if they're committed to social justice like really OSU says that it is. We are still pushing for that. In fact, there is a letter that was published in the Barometer. There are some copies that we're going to be passing around. So that's just part of the work that we're doing at the AAUP. I don't want to speak too long. We have a lot of people here. I just want to say I'm really thrilled to see such a turnout and to be working with all these groups, and especially new student activist group on campus. That is awesome because we're really in this together. You know, as they always say, teachers' working conditions and students' learning conditions. That's very first. So I guess that's segue to you.
All right. Yes, I'm next. My name is David. I am a member of the newly formed group ASAP, Allied Students for Another Politics. We formed about a month ago. Actually, I was one of the original members. And basically what our group is about, we position ourselves against all forms of oppression, exploitation, and domination. And we really focus on intersectionality and horizontalism as our core values. And the issue that we are really focusing on at this moment is the issue of student debt and tuition fees. And before I get to that, first I want to talk about the university as an institution and how it relates to social justice within society in general. University is a place where people go who are looking to become members, or like influential members of the community. And because of this, the university is an institution that has great influence over society, and because it has such an impact in molding these future contributors to the community. And therefore, we say that the position of the group really is that social justice within the social injustice within the university translates directly to social injustice within society. And we think that the issue of student debt and tuition cost is something that really links the university to social injustice within society in general. The reason we think this is because a college degree at this state in modern times, a university degree is really treated as a necessity for people to have access to essentially the middle class and having a stable, comfortable life. Yet, while it's treated as a necessity, it's priced essentially as a luxury. And this just makes it really, it has very limited accessibility for people, especially in marginalized groups who are already vulnerable. And this really, we think, is socially irresponsible and unjust. One of the core values that the university states is social responsibility And the position of our group is basically that by burdening these future contributors to the community with massive amounts of debt, it's recently gone over 1.2 trillion nationally. It's the highest form of consumer debt. The only thing people are paying more for are their houses, they're more indebted for is their houses and medical costs. It's the highest form of consumer debt, and this is something that we think is just inherently unjust. It is restricting the access of marginalized groups across the nation to basically grow and raise themselves within society. And what we want to point out with this is that the root of the issue is the commodification of education. I will rhyme for that. And I think for talking about the commodification of this, we really want to point out what education is. And really it's just the dissemination of the collective knowledge of humanity, which no one person can claim as their own. And by selling it to people, it is really, the implication in that is that someone has the right to basically claim ownership to knowledge and sell it. Of course, costs do go into college, like we need to pay for faculty and facilities, but overall, like philosophically, doesn't it make sense that education, the collective accumulated knowledge of all of humanity, should be in the commons? And that's basically the position that we take. And we say that by commodifying and charging money for education, what we're effectively doing is cutting off marginalized groups from access to this basic like repository of common knowledge, and that is really just it really contributes to the social stratification that exists within our society today. Yeah, and basically what our group says about this is that by the debt we usually think of as like an agreement that people go into for like an agreement to pay money. But the position of our group is that when debt is the result of a necessity, it's no longer an agreement, it's a tool of oppression. And like all other forms of oppression, we stand in solidarity against it. Our solution for this, I don't want to be all grim, is that basically college should be free and student debt should be abolished. That sounds really optimistic, like really idealistic, but in reality, many countries have already done this. Germany, even, they provide free education not only for their own citizens, but for students abroad. If I wanted to, I could go to Germany, go to school for free. Denmark's another example. They don't provide free education to every global citizen, but they do provide free education, and they even provide stipends for living costs, essentially. And actually, an example that I find especially exciting is that just very, very recently, within the last couple of months, Chile actually, there was a movement by students actually for free education, and it recently succeeded. And as of March of 2016, college will be free, and they're funding this just by increasing the corporate tax rate. These things are not like a huge burden on the taxpayer. Like it would cost about, estimates are around 1% of what the current budget is to provide four-year universities for free to all of the nation. And another reason I'm optimistic about this is I think this movement really has momentum, or is starting to gain momentum. Recently you have a proposal by the Obama administration to have community college free. Even the AAUP, I know their response to this is that the first 2 years of all education, regardless of the type, even at universities, should be free. CGU too. And furthermore, there's debt resistance all over the place if you're looking for it. I recently read an article just the other day about students in Michigan who just refused to pay their debts because they went to a for-profit college, and they came out with an education that was frowned upon by others because it was a lower quality college, and they were just like, no, we don't think this is right for us to pay, and really we want to make a statement about student debt nationwide. And I think, yeah, there's a lot of momentum with this movement. And one example of this momentum just to plug our group ASAP, Allied Students for Other Politics again. We're holding a debt assembly next week in 6 days. Tuesday, that's March 3rd. We're going to be in the MU Quad. We've got, well, first it's going to be a march starting in what I guess is called People's Park. It's on it's on Monroe and 11th, I believe is where we're going to start. It's going to be a march from there at 11:30 to the MU Quad, where we will form what we're calling a strike debt assembly, in which we have a bunch of groups, many of which are here today, which and CGE will have representation there. We're basically going to be talking about the issue of student debt and tuition fees as they exist today, and then we're going to really try to gear the conversation towards methods, both in action today and methods that we can, and ways we can improve on these for resisting student debt and ultimately abolishing it and making college free. So I hope you can make it to that. And if you're interested in our group, just take a look at that poster. And yeah, that's what I've got.
All right. My name is Jose Gonzalez. I am the membership coordinator with our sub-local on campus. I was once a student, like many of you are. I moved on to become part of our staff at Oregon State University. I became involved with labor activism after
A little louder?
yes, I'm sorry. After having been exposed to a class by a philosophy professor from Harvard, his name is Michael Sandel. And the subject matter of the course was how to define a socially just society, or a just society. How do we measure that? I became very intrigued by that, and understanding the university context is impossible without understanding the social context in which justice or injustice takes place. For us in particular, as classified staff, we are at a crossroads right now. We don't know what our future is going to be like now that we have to deal with our own institutional forms of governance, as opposed to negotiating our contracts in a unified way. I would like to highlight what you pointed out about not only public education, but the public sector as a whole as being redefined. It is no longer a matter of the common good. It is about the cost effectiveness. Public education is an investment in the well-being of society. It is not about turning a profit or being driven by the market economy. We measure the success and the intellectual affluence of a society by their educational footprint. So yes, like I said, I was once a student here, and it troubles me how much has changed. How much we are outsourcing our education. I used to have a professor that I could go and talk to. I'm trying to go see a professor nowadays. I used to have my homework, graded by hand, all outsourced, become mine. So that troubles me. That might seem, in a distant and remote past. But I think it is also reflected in other facets of higher education life. So, in essence, we have the haves and the have-nots in the university setting. So, thank you for listening.
employees of this university. So CG is the coalition of graduate employees. I'm here representing our union today. And I want to keep this brief. I know we're already running behind on time. But CG is, like I said, a coalition of graduate employees. So we have graduate teaching assistants, and then we have graduate research assistants. And we are currently trying to expand our group of people. And I'm not going to go into that here now, but I just want to go over 3 basic values that CG has and that we've fought for and that we're fighting towards. So to begin, accessibility. Of course, this is a major tenet of the social justice movement, having access to different resources, etc. And CG has done a lot of things over the years to make greater kind of accessibility to different populations. So, for example, in the last contract that we passed through, we now have many more gender-neutral bathrooms, which I think most of you are pretty aware of. They're still a little bit behind, but we're working on it. It's coming through. We also, something a lot of people don't know, because it seems like such a minority issue, but because we are fighting for social justice, we want to make sure no one gets left behind. So we also included in our contract health coverage that would cover sex change therapy. I'm not thinking of the right word. Sex reassignment therapy and sex reassignment surgery. And so this is a really big deal. We have included this already horribly marginalized population and giving them the rights in order to kind of, be a part of society as they feel accordingly. And so another value that we have is economic justice. Okay, in this idea, I think that the old passe idea of being a grad student means you have to starve and eat ramen and barely make it by. That needs to be erased. Of course, we are now in a corporate institution, and I think that all of us gathering together here is a really good step in us fighting back, and we'll come up with some ideas and all of that. But regarding educational justice, once again, over this last contract that happened, a major step towards getting COLAs for graduate students, so increases in wages based on living expenses, and recognizing the work that instructors of record, particularly in the School of Language, Culture, and Society, who have been teaching 50 student classes on a .2. That means 8 hours a week. So that was obviously not representative of the work we were doing. Last year, I put in an average about 16 hours, 20 hours, depending on the week. So anyways, we got that through with the next contract. And so we were now instructors of record have a .3, still not exactly representative, but it's better than nothing. Related to this, and most kind of importantly, is that CG is behind having an institution that creates globally minded and socially critical citizens. So the tools that students receive from classes in the College of Liberal Arts, in the School of Language, Culture, and Society, these are classes that focus on engaging the mind in critical thinking, and critical thinking about society around you. And what the university has done is slapped us in the face. Essentially, they have cut the CLA budget. That has rendered different outcomes in different departments. I know in my own department of anthropology, we've lost positions for graduate students, which means there'll be less classes taught, which means that the university is essentially saying we don't really care about producing globally minded critical citizens. So this goes against all of these core values, and even the idea that OSU could be a socially just university. And so CG is working on this right now. We're working on trying to alleviate this issue, but really this is a broader issue of that there's less funding and less care towards the not capital gaining departments. So departments like engineering, where they bring in a lot of cash through the university, they are valued, but women and gender and sexual studies, they don't get any, they don't bring in capital. So anyways, that's my spiel. We'll keep you, if you're a graduate student, please be involved with CG, come join our meetings if you're not already, and I'm looking forward to talking with you all after.
My name is Amparo Mata. I'm one of the co-chairs for MECHA at OSU. I'm a junior studying education and Spanish. With me is Carmen Lopez, and she can introduce herself.
Okay, so my name is Carmen Lopez. I'm one of the current national members.
MECHA's core values are education, culture, leadership, and community. And a lot of what has been mentioned here resonates with us, and I'm really excited about this connection that we created with ASAP, and that we plan to continue those collaborations and keeping those connections. And so we've identified three points that we wanted to address here, and they're as students and as student organizers on campus, we believe that the administration should have transparent communication with the students. It is often really hard for students to put together events or conferences or that will reach out to students to create awareness about certain issues. Because of all the policies and everything that is involved, that students don't really have the accessibility to, or so one thing that we are asking for is for the university to be more clear with the students, to be more accessible to the students' needs, especially with the student organizations when they're trying to promote social justice among students, and bringing also diverse group of students to the university. Other point that we talked about was the university working closer with the culture centers and working closer with the community, not just having it as an office, but actually the university being involved with the community, being involved with the issues that are happening. Do you want to talk about?
So for me, I just really wanted to add, just going back to the cultural centers, and it's on the timeline here, just going along with like the events that we do as well, like whether it's social justice, culture, we do a lot of like cultural events, like Dia de los Muertos. And so what we've been running up against lately is that our budget has been cut. So it reduces the amount of events that we can host to really educate the community about like just the general OSU population, as well as like people from our community. As well as like, again, reaching out to the greater community, not just within OSU. We have a big community within OSU, but also like reaching out to the Corvallis community. And recently I came up with like a barrier or like a pushback of not being able to reserve one of the cultural centers, even though it was targeting our Latino community. And then it was going to be able to invite like OSU students we mentor for these high school students. So really looking at like that transparency of like, what is the true mission and what are you saying no to? Like, because there's been a lot of pushback, and I think there is kind of like this whole thing where it's like, oh yeah, people of color can do their events, but it's only to a certain extent, you know, don't cross that line. So that's one of the things that's like, you need to be really transparent. If you know, if you're saying no, but why are you telling us no? Because it hasn't just been MECHA who we recently been approved for our budget, and it was definitely a lot lower than we expected it to be. So, and MECHA's not the only student organization who has faced those budget cuts, or even just the fact of Metro being having to defend why we need this money is really offensive, especially going to like our deep history that Metro has within the 1960s and also within OSU as well. So just keep that in mind, like being able to advocate when Metro has an event or when there is an event, really go. Because the problem that we have is a lot of these budget cuts are for people who don't even know what Metro is, who have never gone to our events. So please, if there is, for some reason, sometimes, funding doesn't make sense. But make sure if you feel like there should be a budget cut, it's because it makes sense. Because it isn't promoting social justice. It isn't promoting like the really like involvement of like student awareness.
And also, something that I wanted to add is as students, we also, coming from a Latino background, we trying to bring our community. We try to increase the numbers here in the university, and we try to do that by going to talk to communities, going to having events here at OSU, and something that we have been encountered with is that if it doesn't serve the OSU community, then it should not happen. That's something that we have faced, and that really, for me, that's really sad because if we really want to make this university a diverse university, then we need to go out of this campus. We need to reach out to other communities, and by saying no to that, like we're not obviously not fulfilling that.
I'm Jim Chambers. I'm the local 83 president for FDIU 503, sub-local 83. And because we're our time here, I want to try and make this short. And I think the main point is here is OSU a socially just university, and do they show that with their actions? And I just want to bring up kind of three topics that I think highlight, I guess, my views on whether that's the case. One is the recent parking changes with the dramatic cost of parking for the north side of campus. The fact that they want everybody to park down in the south where there's lots of parking you see around the stadium. The cost of that without thinking about the effects that has on people who have families and children. The second thing would be a recent thing that's happened with our chefs on campus. The laundering of chef jackets used to be paid for by the university, and now it's being picked up by the chefs themselves. They have to do it at home. That cost basically is money out of their pockets, and those are some of the lowest paid people here on campus. And then the third thing is just in terms of the policies that are put in place for FTE hours here on campus. If you're 0.5 FTE or more, you get benefits. There are at least 20 people that I can point directly to who are put in 0.49 FTE specifically so they won't get benefits. And those are just three things. And I think that the policies that a university puts in place, if they're not, they can say one thing, but if they don't follow through with policy to back it up, it just means nothing.
So what we'd like to do now is we want to transition a bit. We want to invite all of you to have a conversation to address this question about what we do to move forward to make sure that we can have a plan of action to align OSU with its professed talk about social justice. So how do we make OSU walk the talk of social justice?